Arjun never saw it coming. Rohit's younger sister, Nisha, had always been around, a familiar presence in the background of their friendship. He still remembered her as the quiet girl who would peek from behind doors whenever he visited Rohit's house. But somewhere along the years, she had changed. The transformation wasn't just physical, though she had grown into a strikingly confident woman. It was in the way she carried herself, in the way she looked at him now. And lately, she had been looking at him a lot. At first, it had seemed harmless. A few lingering glances, playful teasing when they happened to be in the same room. But then the messages started. "Hey, stranger." It had popped up on his phone late one night, unexpected but intriguing. He had replied casually, thinking nothing of it. But as the days passed, the texts became more frequent, more suggestive. A compliment here, a flirtatious remark there. He had assumed she was just being playful until she sent the picture. It wasn't an accident. There was no mistaking the intent behind it. She had followed it up with a single message. "Do you like what you see?" Arjun had stared at the screen, his heart hammering. This was Rohit's sister, his best friend's sister. A line he had never even considered crossing. But now, the line was blurred, tempting him to step over. He hesitated before typing his reply. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Her answer came almost instantly. "Come find out." That was the moment Arjun knew things had changed between them. No longer just teasing, no longer just a game. She wanted him to take the next step. So he did. The next day, he asked her to meet him. She agreed without hesitation, as if she had been waiting for him to make a move. They decided on a quiet cafe, away from familiar eyes, where they could talk, or perhaps not talk at all. Now, as he sat in his car, parked outside the cafe, he found himself gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. This wasn't like him. He was always in control, always the one who dictated the pace of his relationships. But with Nisha, it was different. She had been the one leading the way, and he had followed. Taking a deep breath, he stepped out of the car. Inside, she was already waiting, a small smile playing on her lips as she sipped her coffee. The way she looked at him sent a shiver down his spine. Not innocent, not uncertain, but completely sure of what she wanted. And now, Arjun had to decide if he was ready for what came next. The cafe's warm glow flickered against Nisha's face, highlighting the quiet confidence in her expression. Arjun watched her from across the table, his fingers drumming against his coffee cup. This wasn't some casual meeting, it was a moment that could change everything. Nisha leaned forward, resting her chin on her palm. "You seem tense," she teased, her voice carrying that same playful edge she had in her messages. Arjun exhaled a short laugh. "You think?" Her smile deepened. "Relax. It's just me." That was the problem. It wasn't just her, not anymore. Not after the looks, the messages, the picture that still lingered in his mind. "I wasn't expecting this," he admitted, stirring his coffee though he had no intention of drinking it. She tilted her head. "Why not? You're Rohit's sister." The words felt hollow even as he spoke them. It was the excuse he had been telling himself from the start, but now, sitting across from her, it didn't feel like a reason to stop. Nisha chuckled. "You say that like it means something." "It does." She reached across the table, her fingers brushing lightly against his hand. The touch was brief, but enough to send a jolt through him. "Then why are you here?" Arjun had no answer. Or maybe he did, but he wasn't ready to say it out loud. The cafe buzzed around them, voices blending into an indistinct hum. But in that moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the room. Nisha sighed, pulling her hand back. "Look, I know this is complicated, but I don't want to pretend anymore." Her honesty caught him off guard. He had expected games, teasing, maybe even a challenge. But this was something else. Before he could respond, she stood up, adjusting the strap of her purse. "Come with me." Arjun hesitated only for a moment before following her out the door. They walked in silence, the night air crisp against his skin. The city lights flickered in the distance, but all he could focus on was the girl beside him. Finally, she stopped near a quiet park, turning to face him. "You don't have to overthink this, Arjun. I know what I want." Her confidence was intoxicating. He stepped closer. And what if I want the same thing? A slow smile spread across her lips. Then stop hesitating. It was an invitation, a challenge wrapped in a whisper. And this time, Arjun wasn't about to hold back. As he reached for her, closing the distance between them, he knew there was no turning back. Whatever happened next, they had already crossed the point of no return. The night had a strange stillness to it, as if the world had paused just for them. Arjun could hear nothing but the soft rhythm of their breathing, feel nothing but the warmth radiating from Nisha's body as she stood close. Too close. Her eyes searched his, waiting. Not for permission but for his decision. Arjun exhaled slowly, lifting a hand to trace the edge of her jaw. Are you sure? His voice was quiet, but firm. Nisha's lips curled into a faint smile. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. The last thread of hesitation snapped. He pulled her in, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that shattered whatever boundaries had once existed between them. She melted into him, fingers tangling in his hair, her body pressing against his, as if trying to erase the space that remained. For the first time, Arjun stopped thinking. They moved as if drawn by something inevitable, something neither of them could resist any longer. The teasing, the tension, the uncertainty, all of it faded, leaving only the undeniable pull between them. Time blurred. The city buzzed faintly in the background, forgotten. They found themselves in a place that felt separate from reality, a quiet refuge where nothing else mattered. But something was off. As the intensity between them grew, Nisha hesitated, just for a second. A slight pause in her breath, a faint tremor in her touch. Arjun noticed, but she recovered too quickly for him to be sure. You okay? He murmured against her skin. She nodded, but there was something in her eyes, something unreadable. Still, she didn't stop him. And so, he didn't stop. When it was over, Arjun exhaled deeply, his heart still pounding. He turned to Nisha, expecting to find her smiling, maybe teasing him the way she always did. But she wasn't smiling. She was still. Too still. Nisha? He reached for her, but she didn't respond. His stomach twisted. He shook her gently.
Hey, talk to me.
Nothing. Panic gripped him as he pressed his fingers to her wrist, searching for a pulse. It was there, faint but present. A rush of relief flooded through him, but it was short-lived. She wasn't waking up. Arjun's mind raced. What had gone wrong? Had she been feeling unwell? Had he missed the signs? 1,000 thoughts crashed into him at once, but only one mattered. He had to do something.
Now.
Swallowing his fear, he placed a trembling hand against her cheek. Nisha, wake up. His voice was barely above a whisper, but laced with desperation. Still no response. And for the first time that night, Arjun wished he had never crossed the line. Arjun's pulse pounded in his ears as he cupped Nisha's face, his fingers trembling against her cool skin. Nisha, he whispered again, his voice hoarse with fear. But she remained unresponsive, her breath shallow, her body limp. His mind raced. Had she been feeling unwell? Had he pushed her too far? The weight of his choices pressed down on him, suffocating. Taking a deep breath, he tapped her cheek gently. Come on, wake up. A second passed, then another, and then finally she stirred. A weak groan escaped her lips as her lashes fluttered. Arjun sagged with relief, his hands shaking as he helped her sit up. Nisha, what happened? Are you okay? She blinked dazedly, as if trying to piece everything together. I don't know. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I felt lightheaded. And then, everything went dark. Arjun clenched his jaw. He had noticed her hesitations, the slight tremors in her hands, but he had ignored them, too caught up in the moment. Guilt settled deep in his chest. You should have told me, he murmured. She let out a soft, tired laugh. Would you have stopped? The question cut through him. Would he have? He wanted to believe he would, but the truth was, he had been too lost in his own desires to see what she needed. I should have noticed, he admitted. Nisha leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. It wasn't your fault, Arjun. I guess I wasn't as ready as I thought. The words stung, but he appreciated her honesty. This wasn't just about what had happened tonight, this was about everything that had led to it. The teasing, the flirting, the chase. It had all felt thrilling, but had either of them truly thought about what it meant? What now? He asked quietly. Nisha hesitated before lifting her gaze to meet his. I don't regret this, she said, her voice steady. But I think we need to slow down. Arjun exhaled, nodding. Maybe this had been a wake-up call, not just for her, but for both of them. He had spent so much time caught up in the excitement of wanting her that he hadn't stopped to consider what it meant to have her. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Whatever you need, Nisha. A small, grateful smile touched her lips. Thank you. They sat there for a while, the weight of the night settling between them. The attraction, the connection, it was still there. But now there was something else too. An understanding. As he walked her home, the silence between them felt different, no longer filled with unspoken desires, but with something quieter, something real.